Is anybody in here using a land trust right now to hold title to your property? Nobody. That's good. That means you got a lot to learn today. This is a newspaper, a part of the newspaper in my town. This section comes out once a year. It's probably about 40 pages. You can probably see there's a lot of little lines on here. 40 pages. Every piece of real estate in my county is in my hands right here. And the owner's name. So what if I was kind of an unscrupulous sort of fellow, and I picked this up and I noticed that Alexander Gillespie owns a lot of property. He's in here all over the place. I might just slip and fall tomorrow on one of his properties. Can you imagine that? You imagine somebody doing that? We don't think that way, but there are a lot of people out there in America that don't want to sacrifice their Friday and Saturday to learn about real estate investing. They want to hire a contingency fee lawyer to sue. And you know, the first thing the contingency fee lawyer will do is what's called an asset search. That's what makes people who own real estate in their name big targets. Because you ever notice lawyers don't sue poor people? Why is that? It doesn't matter what the poor person does, they're not going to get sued because the lawyer knows there's a difference between suing and winning and collecting, right? Any of you landlords in here know that, you know, you can sue these bad tenants all you want, but you probably never get anything, right? You get a judgment, which is worthless. So the most important thing you can do as a real estate investor is not get in this newspaper. By law, they have to publish this every year, the assessed value, the owners, and all the rest. So merely by not having your name on the title to this stuff will solve a whole lot of problems in your life. If you're going to be a long-term real estate investor, you need to think along the terms of being more private in the ownership. And that's where the trust comes in. Land trust, yeah, that's kind of a name that a lot of people call it, but basically it's a trust. It's a grantor revocable trust that holds title and assets of real estate. Not personal property, not your car, your house, or not your car, your boat, your motorcycle. Those go in personal property trusts. A real estate trust holds real estate and real estate assets. And I'll give you a list here in a few minutes. But the least expensive thing you can do as a real estate investor is, for privacy and asset protection, is to hold the title to your real estate in a trust. And that's what we're going to be talking about here today. There's my standard disclaimer, which tells you I'm not a lawyer or an accountant giving you any legal or accounting advice. What's interesting about these trusts is you can actually use them to make more money in your real estate investing business. Not only have the benefits of the privacy, and there's some estate planning benefits we'll talk about too, but you can cut the costs of investing and you can increase your profits. And we'll get into these points here in a little bit in a minute in more detail. But if any of you are buying and selling notes or contracts, a lot of real estate investors are contract assignment guys. They're what I call bird dogs. They'll go out and they'll negotiate a deal, they'll find a deal, they'll get it under contract, but they can't or won't close the deal. They will come to a real estate meeting like this and they'll stand up and say, hey, I got a contract, it's got 50,000 equity, you give me 10 grand today and I'll assign the contract to you. The best way to do that is by using a trust. Now, probably all of you who are investing in real estate have had your attorney tell you to title the real estate in an LLC, right? Isn't that what they tell you? I like LLCs. I use them in my business every day, but not to hold the title. I use these LLCs as the beneficiary of the trust. Why? Well, just think about this. Can't I look up who owns an LLC? In general, every state except Missouri, Nevada, Wyoming, maybe Delaware. Those states do not publish the owners of LLCs. But if you're forming your LLC in any of the other states, I can look up online, just like if you have the title in your own name personally, I can look up online who owns it, so you have no anonymity. That's the first problem with titling in an LLC. The second problem is, if you take most legal advice and put your real estate into an LLC, and let's say you got 10 apartment buildings, and you title them all into one LLC, and you have a lawsuit. The kid falls out the window, is disabled for life, and there's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against that property's owner. Who owns it? The LLC, right? It owns that property and 9 other ones. Now, if they sue and they win and they get a judgment, the judgment is against the owner. The owner's the LLC. Kind of sounds like they have a judgment against 10 buildings now, doesn't it? So you can see how dumb that is. You need to put each property into a separate trust, so each one is insulated from the other. That way, if you have to lose one, so be it, but at least you're not going to lose all your investment with one lawsuit on one unrelated property. So it just makes good common sense to first title your real estate in a trust, because there's no registry for trusts. You can't look up who owns a trust. Nowhere on planet Earth can you find out who owns a trust. And then make the beneficiary of the trust your LLC. So you're getting the asset protection benefit of the LLC and the privacy element of the land trust. It's so interesting. I get calls. In fact, I had one 2 days ago before I got here. Is this the Vermont Land Trust? If you type into Google land trust, you find me. So everybody in America who wants to know who owns that property next door so they can complain about the dog or the bad tenants or whatever they want to complain about, they type into Google land trust because they want to find out who owns it, because they already have looked on the title and it says Virginia Land Trust. So then they Google it and they get my number and they call me up assuming that I am the trustee for all trusts in America. Is this the Virginia Land Trust? I want to complain about those damn dogs. No, ma'am, this is not the Virginia Land Trust. Thank you for calling, though. But it just reminds me over and over again why I do this and why I tell other people to do it. Because they can't find out who does own the property next door. So we're going to combine the trust with the LLC to get the best of both worlds. Avoid frivolous lawsuits. I don't know if you've been involved in a frivolous lawsuit, but they're no fun. They're expensive, they're time consuming, and you lose sleep, which doesn't sound very productive to me. I don't teach people how to use trust to avoid their responsibilities in life. I think if you tell somebody you're going to pay them, you sign a note, you sign a mortgage, whatever it is, you should pay it. This is my 50th year in this business. 5 decades investing in real estate. I've never gone bankrupt. I've never not paid a note on time. I've never defaulted on a loan. But I can tell you this, if you want to come after me after 5 decades of working hard to get what I got, you're going to have a fight on your hands. And I think that's only fair. I think you should be able to defend yourself, especially against frivolous lawsuits. Let me give you an example. In the year 2000, I sold a house that my wife and I and my 2 daughters lived in. And 6 months after closing, I got a letter from the lawyer who represented the buyer. And he said, "Dear Mr. Hughes, my client had to replace an air conditioner, some wood flooring, and all the toilets in the house. There were 6 toilets. He had to replace them all. They worked fine when I was there. And if you'll just send us a check for $8,000, we won't sue you. You ever got a letter like that? You will if you stay in this business long enough. Just a matter of time. These people, these contingency fee lawyers, kind of prey on intimidation. You know, they could send out 10 letters a day like that and make some serious cash, because most people will fold or negotiate. They get scared. They got to hire a lawyer, and it's expensive, time consuming, and you lose a lot of sleep. But I was prepared. I wasn't going to play the game, so I sent him a letter back and I said, "Dear Mr. Lawyer, I'd suggest you check your records to see who you're threatening to sue, because I didn't own the property." So he sent me a letter back. And in so many words, he said, "Well, if you just," first he said, "My client told me you lived in the house." Well, some people live in houses in America they don't own, right? "And if you'll just tell us who the owner was, we won't sue you." I'm still Mr. Tough Guy. So I sent him a letter back and I said, "Well, you know, I don't really understand how all this works. It seems kind of complicated to me, but some kind of a trust owned my house that I lived in. And I just rented from the trust. So my last sentence was, good luck finding him." And you know what? You know what happened? Anybody got a guess? He didn't even have the respect to send me a letter back thanking me. I never heard from him again. Isn't that interesting? An $8,000 lawsuit just gone like that, just because I didn't have my name on the title. Now, land trust by itself is not a great asset protection tool. It's not designed for that. It's designed for privacy. But just by not having my name on the title, stop that cold. Why did that stop it cold? Here's what I imagine the conversation of the buyer and his attorney when they got that last letter. "Well, Bob, this guy isn't going to be as easy as screw as the last 5 people we sent the letter to. What do you want to do? You want to write a check, about $10,000 in my escrow account, and I'll send you a letter once a month telling you how many hours I spent chasing, trying to find this trust." And Bob said, "Hell no, I'm not going to do that. Let's go sue somebody that's easy to intimidate, somebody who owns real estate in their name." That's how the game is played, folks, whether you like it or not. Could somebody bring me a glass of water, please? Would you please? Thanks, Derek. So that's what I'm talking about on this slide about frivolous lawsuits. They happen all the time. It's a full-time business for some folks. And believe me, stay out of the line of fire. It'll be to your best interest. Thank you, Derek. Isn't this a beautiful facility here? Man, it's nice to be here. So what is the tool of the smart real estate investor? Don't be intimidated. It's just a few pieces of paper. You know, lots of people, when they hear trust, they think of big banks and columns and vaults and things like that. It's just a few pieces of paper. It's a title holding trust. It's a way of holding title to your real estate in something other than your name. You need 2 things to accomplish this. You need a trust agreement and you need a deed in trust. The trust agreement is a contract between the trustee and the beneficiary. The trustee is just holding title. They have no power. Now, here's where a lot of attorneys get confused. Most attorneys are familiar with living trusts, where the trustee has the power. The trustee can do whatever they want. They can sell that property. They can drain the trust with cash, whatever they want to do. The beneficiaries just have to go along for the ride. Not so with a land trust, just the opposite. The beneficiary has the power. The trustee merely holds title until he or she is told what to do. So it's a contract between those 2 parties. It is not recorded anywhere. So you got trustee and a beneficiary, and the cost to create these trusts, nothing. 0. Nada. What's the cost to form an LLC in Texas? $450? About that? Is that annually your franchise tax? Probably, yeah. In Illinois, it's $500. In California, it's $800. So, in the old days, some people would form a separate LLC for each property as a way of keeping them separated. But that gets expensive, time consuming, and as we mentioned, maybe you don't get the privacy if you're forming a Texas LLC because Texas publishes the owners. But these trusts cost nothing. So if you're very active in the real estate business, you want to learn how to do this because you may form hundreds of these things over your investment lifetime. And you think of the money you would save learning how to do this instead of paying somebody. Now, as far as paying somebody, first off, you're going to have a problem finding anybody that knows how to do it because lawyers aren't taught this information in law school. So if they don't learn it on their own after law school, they don't have a clue. That's kind of good news, bad news. The bad news is it's hard to find somebody, but once you do and you learn how to do this, the good news is 99% of the lawyers in America don't know anything about a trust, these type of trusts. And I think anytime you're operating at a level lawyers don't understand is a good thing. What kind of property can you put in these trusts? Well, as I mentioned earlier, all types of real estate, including contracts, leasehold interests, notes, mortgages, mineral rights, air rights. I had a guy call me a couple years ago from Kentucky, and he said, I want to buy your home study course and learn how to create trusts. I said, great, what are you going to do with it? He said, I've got 1,500 oil and gas leases here in Kentucky, and some of them go boom and some of them go bust, so I don't want to own them in one entity for the same reason we were talking about not putting 10 apartment buildings in an LLC earlier. So he bought my home study course and he created 1,500 land trusts, one for each oil and gas lease. Smart guy. Who can do this? You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't even have to be very smart. I mean, I can do it. You don't have to take a class. You don't have to, there's no continuing education, no licensing requirement. Anybody and everybody can do it. If you have a partnership, it can do it. If you have a corporation, it can create a trust. Or you can do it as individual investors, however you want to do it. Why use a trust to make more money? Well, you get privacy and asset protection. You can make greater profits. They're excellent when you combine them with the LLC, as I mentioned earlier, and they're free. I mean, what else do you want in life, right? This is good stuff for real estate investors. And you can do it yourself for the rest of your life at no cost. Now, it's interesting. Last year, I spoke quite a bit in Southern California because I was there in January and February before the world came to an end. And of course, I didn't speak any time after that. 2019, I spoke 33 times to 33 different real estate clubs. And I've been speaking like this for 21 years. And my experience is that only about 20% of the audience that I speak to gets it. Gets my home study course and takes it and runs with it. That means 80% don't. And that always concerns me, that 80% of the people will learn about the benefits of doing this and walk away. Or some of them will come up to me after I speak and they'll say, I think this is a great idea, but I don't want to do it myself. I want to hire somebody to do it. Can you recommend a lawyer? And I say, yeah, I can do that. And it depends on what area you're in, but typically, there's a lawyer I refer a lot of people to. She charges $1,575 per trust for each trust. So now if you're very active in this business, you own a lot of property, you're in and out, you're buying, you're selling, you're rehabbing, all that sort of thing, it's going to get real expensive to pay $1,500 for every trust. So you can see how you can save a whole lot of money, learn how to do this yourself, and then you know what you're doing too. Once you get that template, which I help you develop on your computer, you just fill in the blanks and you'll create a trust in 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes. It's that easy. Who's not using it? Well, real estate investors who take title in their own name. This is very, very dangerous. It's very dangerous to put your name on a deed. It's especially dangerous to go on a deed with somebody else. Kind of like being married. Very dangerous, right? Let me give you an example. I think people learn better by example, by real life examples than, standing up here and giving you a bunch of theory. So in December of 1984, a friend of mine and I decided to buy a shopping center. And I insisted at closing to put the title to that shopping center in a land trust. And we did. In the year 2000, my friend moved out of Illinois and he moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where he was a very successful real estate developer, made millions of dollars. Until when? Anybody got an idea? When did it come to a stop? You are correct, Don. 2008, the world came down on him. When I last talked to him, he told me he had $23 million worth of liens and judgments against him because of 2008. But I was only concerned about one. I get a weekly email from my recorder's office of everything that's recorded in my county. You get married, I know about it. You get divorced, the IRS file a lien against you, I know about it. So I'm sitting there at my computer reading the report, and what do I see but my friend's name? Now he's not lived in Illinois for 15 years at this point. But a bank in Florida has filed a lien for $3.2 million against him and anything he owns in his name in my county. And I sat back, I held my heart, and I said, wow, I just dodged a bullet. Why? Because if he and I had been on that deed to that shopping center together, I would have just lost everything. Do you know what it's like to lose everything after working 5 decades? How'd you like to go home and tell your spouse, so, honey, we lost everything today because I'm not smart enough to protect our assets? That can happen to you. If you go on a deed with somebody, everything they do and everything that happens to them happens to you. Don't ever, ever, ever go on a deed with somebody, not even your spouse. And don't ever go on a deed with yourself, in my opinion. But if you don't buy that, at least buy the theory that don't go on a deed with somebody else. You will live to regret it. So in my travels, in my speeches, I talk to people about why would you not use a trust? I mean, what's going through your mind right now? Is this guy crazy? Does he know what he's talking about? I'm not interested in doing this. What is it? So these are the common objections that I've heard over the years from my audience members. My attorney says land trusts don't work or are illegal. So if your attorney tells you that, get a different attorney, because land trusts are not illegal in any state. And they do work, as some of the stories I've given you, and I have many, many stories that we probably won't have time for to prove that they work. It's too expensive to put each property into a trust. Well, it might be if you don't learn how to do it yourself. If you're going to hire somebody at $1,000 a trust, that's pretty expensive. Wouldn't you rather keep that $1,000 in your pocket? I don't want the extra paperwork. That's a true one. It is extra paperwork. I'll admit to that. But the way I look at that is, what's your net worth worth? Is it worth a little extra paperwork, or do you want to leave it all out on the line because you're too lazy to do some paperwork? I'll lose control of the property. This is an interesting one. I probably had 15 single-family houses in my name before I woke up to the realization that was pretty stupid, that you could go look in the courthouse records what I owned, what it was assessed for, and what the debt was on it, at least when I financed it initially, what the debt was. And with those three numbers, you can pretty much calculate my net worth, can't you? That's pretty dumb. That's like going to a cocktail party with your financial statement taped to your back. And why is that dumb? Because it's kind of an oxymoron in our business. The more successful you become, the more of a target you become for a lawsuit. So the more you're out there telling everybody you own that 100-unit apartment building down there, the more chances are there's going to be a lawsuit, and you won't even know the source of that lawsuit. There may have been some guy behind you when you were having a cocktail party and you're talking to your buddy and bragging about that 100-unit apartment building you just bought, and some guy behind you overhears the conversation. Next thing you know, you got a lawsuit. And you didn't even know you brought it on yourself. That's how this game is played. So I thought the same thing. I thought, oh my goodness, if I'm not on title, I'm going to lose control. You don't lose control. You have total control as the beneficiary of the trust. That trustee cannot do anything with the title unless you direct them to do so in writing. I don't care if somebody sues me, they have the right. This is America. Sue me. Well, if you feel that way, I can't help you. I personally just don't think you have the right to sue me unless I've wronged you in some way. Just because you're coveting my assets doesn't give you the right to sue me. I'd rather hire someone to do it for me. We talked about that. You can do that, and I can refer you to an attorney that'll do it for you, but it's going to cost you dearly. So hopefully you're going to learn to join the club of real estate investors today that do this the right way, the smart way. I will coach you through your first trust agreement, get you a template down. I give tremendous support to my students. I answer my phone 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. Who does that? You guys do that? I do. I do. Some of you guys can attest to it. You call me. I have my office line forwarded to my cell phone all the time. I'm in Mexico every 3 weeks, in Cancun, talking to my students down there, answering the phone. Nobody gives service like that anymore. I don't know about you, but whenever I buy anything, I can't get anybody on the phone. I get a recording that says, go to my website and waste 3 days of your life figuring it out, right? I don't do that. 8 out of 10 questions you're going to have if you get my home study course will be answered in the course material. The other 2 questions, call me, email me, whatever you want to do. But I will be there to give you good support. So I came across this list in a magazine, which I kind of thought was interesting. Most likely to get sued in America today. Do you see yourself on there anywhere? Why are we towards the top? If you've ever been involved in a lawsuit and you won and you're trying to collect, it's amazing how cash disappears from bank accounts, how quickly it disappears. Because that's the first thing you go after is the cash, right? And by the time you get to their bank, 3 hours after the judge has issued the judgment, the cash is gone. Lawyers like hard assets. You can't go sell your apartment building in 3 hours, can you? That's why we're at the top of the list. We're great prospects for lawyers to sue because they know they're going to get paid one way or another. You may find yourself on this list more than once, but what I find interesting is the note at the bottom, 97% of lawsuits filed do not even go to trial. What does that tell you? They negotiate, don't they? They settle. That tells me that 3% of the lawyers in the United States only know how to go to trial. 97% probably don't even know how to go to trial, but they're really good at settling. So your lawyer makes money, their lawyer makes money, and you don't. You're the sucker in between. Don't put yourself in this position, folks. That money can be better spent investing in more real estate. So I always ask folks, I've got a copy here. This is my home study course. It comes with a USB key with all the forms in Word document format. Audio and video of me teaching the material to a live audience. It's all on this little bitty key. If all this did for you was prevent you from sitting across the table from these guys once in your life, would it be worth it? You better believe it would be, because it's expensive to sit across the table from those folks, let alone aggravating. And let's throw in you lose a lot of sleep, right? So learn how to do this for your own self and for your family, because if you don't do it, your family's not going to do it for you. They're not exposed to it. It's your responsibility to protect your family's assets. If you don't do it, nobody's going to do it. I have a lawyer that attends all my real estate closings. He's a really smart guy, but I can guarantee you he's not laying awake at night worrying about my assets. That's not his job. It's your job. So I got to thinking, we got all these sharks swimming in the water out there. Who's looking out for me? Who's looking out for you? So I made a list. You want to see it? The license plate at the top there is, there's a lawyer in San Diego, California. When I'm out there, she and I go out to lunch and we talk trust stuff, and she does trust all day, every day. So we went to lunch at this restaurant and we pulled up and parked, and I said, I got to get a picture of that license plate. For you, I sue. And the one below it is an attorney in my town. Sue him. I mean, that's just his attitude. Whatever it is, sue him. So I made this list. Here's the list of everybody looking out for you. Nobody. Nobody is looking out for you. If you don't do this, it ain't going to get done. I guarantee you. You've got to do it yourself. Just a little bit of history on myself. I did, as the introduction said, I did start buying houses when I was in college in 1969. There's a picture of the first house I bought. It looks a lot nicer now because somebody who subsequently bought it put some aluminum siding on it and new windows and that sort of thing. It's a little 2-bedroom, tiny little living room and a open living room to the kitchen area, 1-car garage detached. I rented it to other college students. I put 2 in a bedroom, stack them up like wood, you know, on the walls. And that was my first rental house. I assumed a VA loan. I took all my life savings from collecting pop bottles and cashing them into the grocery store. Do you remember doing that? For a nickel to 10 cents a bottle. And I cashed him out, $800, and assumed his VA loan. I did actually graduate from college in 1973. My father was an alcoholic, and he got in the car one day when I was 16 and drove away and never came back. And so we had some financial difficulties, to say the least. And I really didn't have any mentor to teach me financial information, right from wrong, that sort of thing. And the reason why I tell you this is, and many of you might be able to relate to this, when you start out life with nothing, maybe a little less than nothing, a negative net worth, and you work really hard for a long period of time to get something, you don't want to go back to nothing, right? Because you remember what nothing's like. It's no fun living life without money, without assets, without income. It's no fun. And that's probably what was the genesis for my desire to learn how to hold title to real estate where I was less likely to get sued. I didn't want to go back to nothing, not after working all that time to get something. Let's see if this works. We've got audio here, don't we, folks? Let's see if it works. I was speaking in Southern California one year, about 4 or 5 years ago, and at the end of the talk, this guy came up to me afterwards and he started talking to me, and I said, wait a minute, this is just too good. We got to get a camera going. And we recorded it, and here's what he said.
Andy, I have to tell you, as an attorney here in California, I pride myself on the ability to basically break apart anything legally. And what you presented is beyond my ability to pierce. The asset protection and the methodology, especially the specific order of going out of state using some of your high-end methods, is just mind-blowing to me. It's something that I can't find a way to pierce it, and I've tried.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those comments. It's nice to have the affirmation like that from time to time that because you're not always believed, when you teach this stuff. Some people think, well, maybe that's all theory, but it doesn't really work. So when you hear it from somebody that's in the streets going after people from time to time, it's nice to know that we've put up a barrier you can't get through. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. You absolutely have. Thank you.
Okay. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? One of the sharks was in the audience. One thing he mentioned there, the high-end method. There's no federal land trust law. It's all state by state. And only 6 states actually have a land trust statute, but they're legal in all states. So Texas, for example, you don't have a land trust statute, but you can still create land trusts here. Now, what he alluded to was a technique that I use, and the way to understand this is, I live in Illinois. All my investment properties in Illinois. I don't use Illinois land trusts. And if I lived in Texas, I wouldn't use a Texas land trust to hold title to my Texas property. Why? Just another layer, another step, another hurdle. And think about it this way. Let's say I have a Florida land trust that holds title to my Texas real estate, and the beneficiary of the land trust is a Wyoming LLC. Oh my gosh, what a mess, huh? Not really, you understand it because you put it together, but somebody coming after you, that's going to be real expensive to break all that apart. Real expensive. It better be worth a lot of money to them. You got 3 different states' laws involved when you're doing it that way. When you sue a trust, primarily you have to sue the trustee first. Now the trustee has no personal liability, but the only way they can get to who they want to get to, the beneficiary, is to sue the trustee, get him into court, bend his thumbs back and say, all right, we got you. Who's really in control? And then he says, well, really the beneficiary is a Wyoming LLC. Oh crap, now we gotta go to Wyoming. We just had to go to Florida to bend this guy's thumbs back. Can you imagine what this is costing your adversary in legal fees? Generally what happens is the lawyer in Texas says, well, I'll call one of my brothers at the bar in Florida, and now you got 2 lawyers you're paying. And then he says, well, we'll call one of the brothers of the bar in Wyoming, and now you're paying 3 lawyers. How long do you think you can pay this before you get to the bottom of the barrel? How much money do you want to gamble? Or wouldn't you rather just go sue somebody that owns real estate in their name? I would. It's much, much easier, much less expensive. So all we're talking about here are hurdles. Not one of them is a guarantee that you'll never be sued, or a guarantee that you'll win, but if you throw enough hurdles out in front of somebody, they're going to run out of time, money, or inclination, aren't they? Just a matter of logic. So 11 years ago, I formed something I called the Land Trust University. And this, I had up and running well before Zoom was in existence. This is how my students get additional support. It's online. All my forms are there, my videos, my audios. I do a monthly coaching call for the members, and those are recorded and categorized. I'm the only guy on the planet writing a Land Trust newsletter for real estate investors. They're in the Land Trust University and archived for the last 11 years. I have all kinds of helpful information in there for my students. I have a list of Land Trust friendly lenders, Land Trust friendly insurance companies. I have a letter in there that you print out to hand to somebody to convince them to be your trustee. All kinds of really good information. And we meet on a Saturday morning once a month. We talk for an hour about privacy and asset protection, corporations, LLCs, equity stripping, all kinds of cool things. So let's talk specifically, how do we create a trust? 4 steps. Number 1, you create a trust agreement. Remember we said earlier that's the contract between the trustee and the beneficiary. Number 2, we create a deed in trust. That's what puts the property into the trust. So think of it this way. They had to build this hotel first before they brought the furniture in, right? So the hotel is the trust agreement. The deed puts the furniture in. Make sense? You record that deed in trust, and then you do what I do best, and that is I start sleeping better at night. I slept much better at night after I got those 15 houses out of my name. Much better. Breaking it down a little bit further, how do you create a trust agreement? Well, you start with a template that I provide you with instructions in there on how to do this. The trustee signs it, the beneficiary signs it. You do not record the trust agreement, okay? It stays in your files only. That's what gives you the privacy of ownership. How do you create the deed? Well, you start with a template again that I provide to you. The grantor on the deed, it should be the seller. So what we're saying here is don't take title in your name and then go to the trust. Take title directly from the seller to your trustee. That way you're never in the chain of title. Make sense? And don't put your address on the deed. You know, you got to put an address on a deed, right, to get the tax bill. Some people that don't think this through put their home address on the deed. Kind of gives you up, doesn't it? Step 3, transferring the property into the trust. You know, if you own real estate now, it's not the end of the world. Just get it out of your name as soon as you can. Transfer out of your name and into a trust. You record the deed in the county in which the property is located, not where you live, not where you form the trust, if it was in Florida, for example, in the county in which the property is located. And you'll receive a recorded deed in the mail from them, or they'll stamp it and give it to you right away. Then you keep that in your records, and then you get to start sleeping well. Here's a little structure that works very well. Let's say you own 3 single-family rental houses. You put each one in a separate trust, 1, 2, 3. You make an LLC the beneficiary of all 3 trusts. Got it? And if you want to do a little estate planning, you can drop a living trust in here at the bottom of the funnel. So the moment you die, everything drops down into that living trust. This is not expensive to do, it's not hard to do, and it works like a charm. I was married for 41 years, and my wife died 6 years ago. And this is exactly how her assets were structured. And the moment she died, everything dropped into her living trust. Nothing was recorded anywhere on the planet. Didn't have to go through probate. And immediately, I am the trustee of that living trust. My daughters are the beneficiaries. Immediately, we had control of everything. with no legal problems at all. It worked like a dream. This is a great structure. I'd suggest you consider it for your own family, because if you don't do this, if you own real estate in your name right now and you die tonight, your family's not going to get control of that for probably 6 months, maybe longer. It's got to go through probate, which is a legal process where everything is recorded. Everything you owned is reported. Everything you own and who it's transferred to now is recorded, and the whole world knows everything. You ever notice that when rich people die, you don't read that stuff in the newspaper? It's because they use trusts. They're more private. They don't want you to know all the stuff they owned. Now, that living trust is just the opposite of a land trust. Remember I said before that the land trust is controlled by the beneficiary? The trustee just holds title, doesn't do anything until he's directed to do so. A living trust is just the opposite. A living trust is controlled by the trustee, and the beneficiaries just go along for the ride. That's a huge distinction there. I'm going to go through about 12 reasons to use a trust. I've written a booklet. With over 50 reasons to use a trust that I'll give you for free. But we'll hit 12 of them. And there's my email address if you want to email me with any questions later on. There's the booklet. I forgot I had it on there. There's the phone number. If you want to text to that phone number the word reasons, you'll get the booklet for free right away. 50 reasons to use a trust. Text to 206-203-2005. All right. Why should you do this? Number one, you avoid property going through probate. We just talked about that with my wife's example. Judgments don't attach to the property. We talked about the shopping center, right? $3.2 million didn't touch the property. Why is that? Because you don't own it. You can't lien a property that you don't own. If I have a judgment against you, I can't go put a lien against this hotel for your judgment. That's crazy. You don't own the hotel, right? I'm not saying don't do business with other people, but just do it in a way that protects you. Wholesaling and contract assignments are easier using a trust. No registered agent is needed. No franchise tax. IRS says no tax return, not on a grantor revocable trust, no tax return. You just report everything at the beneficiary level. So don't worry about taxes. Protection against unhappy tenants. If some of you are landlords in here, you'll really relate to this, but I had a lady call me a couple, 3 years ago from Florida, and she said, how do I get your home study course fast? And I said, well, we can arrange that, but what's the hurry? She said, well, I own 8 rental properties down here in Florida, plus my own personal residence. And I just got a call from one of my tenants that a man knocked on the door looking for me. And I know who he is, and I'm not interested. And it was at that point that the light bulb went off in her head. You don't own this stuff in your name. What had he done? He just typed in her name, printed out 9 addresses, and went knocking on doors till he found out where she lived. Now, if that doesn't scare you as a lady landlord, I don't know what else would scare you into doing something to make a change in your life and get off the deeds. Had another lady call me just last week. She said, I want to learn how to put my properties in trust. And I said, okay, why? She said, I had an old, scraggly looking gentleman come to my door, knocked on my door, and he said, I know you own a lot of property, and I want to house disabled veterans in one of your properties? And she said, I'm divorced. I would have 2 little kids with me, and he scared me to death. So she said, I called my lawyer, and he said, put your properties in an LLC. And she said, they are in an LLC. In other words, he'd looked up the owner of the LLC, and then he looked up where she lived and came knocking at her door. Now, I've been a landlord for 50 years, and for 20 of those years, I had 2 little girls growing up in my house. And the last thing I needed was some guy I was evicting knocking at the front door and my 7-year-old daughter answer. So you can see there's some real life safety issues involved with owning real estate, especially if you're going to be a landlord. So that's your protection against unhappy tenants. You can avoid the due on sale clause, transfer tax, and reassessment of your property and closing costs by using a trust. This adds up to a lot of money, folks. Let's say, what's the average home price in this area? 200,000? Okay. Let's say you have an opportunity to buy a house from an elderly couple that are going to move into assisted living. They've lived in this house for 40, 50 years. They bought it for 20 grand. It's now worth 200. But because it's never sold in the meantime, it's now assessed for 50 grand. If you pay 200 for that property, the day you close, the tax bill is going to go from 50 to 200, right? You see what I mean? It's going to suck all your cash flow out. You're going to get killed on taxes going from 50 to 100 to 200,000 in one day. What a waste of money. How do you avoid that? You use a trust. You have grandma and grandpa, in this case, put their property into a trust, and then you buy the beneficial interest in the trust, which avoids reassessment at sale. Why? Buying the beneficial interest in a trust is a private transaction. It's not recorded. The tax man doesn't find out about it, and you stay at the $50,000 assessment. Now, I hope that's soaked in, because that one idea was worth coming for today. That is a great way to make money in this business. Keep your tax assessment low. And that doesn't just apply to a single family house. You know, it could be an apartment building. It could be a commercial structure for an oil business. Buy the trust, don't buy the real estate. You get all the same tax benefits. The IRS says, we don't care. But it could save you thousands of dollars a year on the tax bill. If you want to keep a low interest rate loan, there's a guy mentioned a couple of speakers ago, interest rates are really low right now. Well, they're not going to stay low forever. So let's say you got an opportunity where someone's got a 2% loan, and now rates are at 5% in a year or two from now. You buy the trust, the 2% loan stays in place, you're saving 3%. That 3% adds up after a while, folks. Many, many ways of making and saving money using these trusts. Helps you avoid ID theft. What's interesting about using these trusts is if you do it right, you will qualify for the loan on your financial strength, and you'll sign a note and or a guarantee, but you don't sign the mortgage. Why? Because you don't own the property. The trustee signs the mortgage, but the trustee isn't personally liable. So there's nobody to report to the credit agency on. They're not reporting on you because you didn't sign the mortgage. They're not reporting on the trustee because the trustee isn't personally liable. So it kind of sounds like you own millions of dollars worth of real estate and someone could pull a credit report on you and nothing would show. Isn't that interesting? Can you see a benefit there? Repossess, don't foreclose. I like to buy low and sell high houses. I've found that there are a whole lot of people in America today that can't qualify for a conventional loan. They're good people, they got money. Their credit score's not high enough. They're self-employed less than 2 years, can't get a loan. They're in the cash business, maybe retail, they don't report all their income. Whatever the reason, there are a whole lot of people in America that want to buy a house that never will be able to qualify conventionally. It's a great untapped market. So I buy houses, negotiate the lowest price I can get, and then I sell it to these folks at the highest price I can get. And I sell it to them on a 7% contract to buy the beneficial interest in the trust. So think about that. What's the bank's worst fear when they make you a loan? Anybody got an idea? That you don't pay. And that's my worst fear too. If I sell you a house, my worst fear is you don't pay. Why? Because if you don't pay and I've not used a trust, I'm going to have to foreclose your interest. Foreclosure in my town is expensive and time consuming. I just helped a gentleman do this who did not take my advice. He sold on a standard contract. The buyer defaulted. It took $10,000 in legal fees in a year to get the title back. So that puts a hole in your investment program real fast. So how do you solve that problem? You use a trust. The beneficial interest in a trust is personal property, not real estate. What happens if you go down to the bank and you buy a truck and you finance it at the bank and you don't make all the payments? What happens? Repo, that's right. The repo man comes out with a truck and a hook and they pull it out of your driveway. That's the same thing I do if you don't pay me on my contract payment. Because it's personal property, I repossess, I don't foreclose. That saves a ton of time, a ton of money, and a ton of aggravation. That's another really good one. I hope that's soaked in. That's a great way to make money in this business and reduce your exposure. Anybody doing options, lease options? If you are, same philosophy applies. Sell an option on the beneficial interest in the trust. Don't sell an option on the house itself or the apartment building or whatever it is you're dealing with. Naming your land trust. This is the fun part. I have a whole chapter in my home study course on how to name your trust. And if you go to a lawyer and tell him that you heard this guy from Illinois talking about the trust and he said how important it is to pick a good name, the lawyer will probably tell you I'm crazy. But I've been doing this for a long time, folks. And I think naming your trust is a significant part of avoiding lawsuits. Let's take an example. Most of the lawyers would tell you, well, name it after the property address. So call it the 123 Vine Street Trust. Or I've even seen some lawyers say, well, call it the Randy Hughes Trust, which gets recorded, so it kind of gives up your anonymity there. I like to name my trust something a little more creative, maybe a little more intimidating. Let me give you some possible examples. I've got 28 Section 8 tenants. Some of my trusts are named Government Trust, Section 8 Trust number 1, 2, 3, 4. So if my tenants look up who owns it, they're wanting to bitch about something, they look up who owns their property, they think the federal government owns it. And everybody knows that you can't talk to anybody with the federal government, so you might as well just quit bitching. There's a lot of money flowing into South Florida right now from South America, cash in suitcases, buying property as a store of value. What if I name my trust the Medellin Partners Trust? You want to sue those guys? Probably not. They don't play by the rules, do they? You see how intimidating that is? Just from the get-go. There's a ton of money flowing into San Francisco. I speak out there quite a bit, coming from Asia. They're paying all cash, asking price or more. The local investors like yourself, they're complaining they can't buy anything because the Asians are buying everything up at top price. So what if I name my trust the Asian Consortium of Global Real Estate Investors? You want to take them on? They probably have 20 lawyers just waiting to sue you back. So you can see that there is a point in naming your trust. So I have a whole chapter on how to name and number your trust. Why is a number important? Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So I called up my recorder's office, and I talked to the lady who types in information off deeds. And I said, how many characters can you type in your field there, you know? She said 32, and I said, thank you very much. And from that point on, all my trusts have a longer than 32 characters. Why? Can't record it all. It gets truncated. And we all know everybody's lazy. They look on their computer. They don't actually go to the courthouse anymore, to the recorder's office, and look up the real name. So what if I was trying to hide the name of my trustee? Some states, not many, but some states will let you hold the title to the property in just the name of the trust and not name the trustee on the deed. That's pretty slick, but most states don't allow it. So let's say I was trying to make that happen. So I've got a long name, and I can put the name of the trust first and then the trustee. So I got a long name of 33 characters, and then the name of the trustee kind of isn't going to show up, is it? Not unless you go down and look. These are techniques that will save you money and save you a lot of sleepless nights. Things I developed over the years that you can benefit from. So hopefully you'll understand that what's at stake is, retirement, college education for the kids, new car, new boat, new house, all the things that you're working hard for, that somebody else wants you to work hard for them to take away from you. So for those people who get my home study course when I speak, I do give a 6-month free membership in my Land Trust University. Thereafter, it's $27 a month. Month to month, you can stay in or not, but it's well worth it. And you get 6 months to test drive that. So my Land Trust Made Simple system is a simple system. It's proven. You save money, you fill in the blanks, you get ultimate privacy, and it teaches you how to do this at no cost. So again, if you buy my philosophy to put each property in a separate trust, it's going to get real expensive to pay somebody else to do it, and it won't cost you anything for you to do it yourself. The online training and video gives you real-life examples of how trusts make you more money. You can listen to my training in your car, on your iPad, whatever device you have. It's a mobile-friendly website. You can use these trusts for foreclosure, subject to, lease options, contracts, all types of real estate. And as I mentioned earlier, service is everything, and I will answer my phone if you have any questions. So all the forms are included. They're all Word documents, so you can just fill in the blank. You can add to and subtract. You don't have to retype everything. And I throw in a little extra bonus too. This is a free asset protection consultation with a friend of mine who sets up corporations and LLCs for my students all over the country. So you can talk to him for free, pump him for information. He can tell you what's the best state, what the costs are, because each state is different, whether you should have a single member LLC or a multi-member. And then if you want to use him to set up an LLC or a corporation, fine. He also does living trusts as well. Last testimonial, this is a young man who was in college when he bought my course, TJ. And I said, would you give me a testimonial? And he said, yeah. I said, you want to write something down first? He said, no, just sit me down and turn on the camera. And I did, and here's what he said.
Hi, my name's TJ. I'm from Illinois. I'm 21 years old and I'm a senior in college. I recently acquired a piece of land down in Florida, and I knew a little bit about land trust, but not much. After finding some research and doing some online, I came across Randy's website. I wasn't too sure about it all at first, but I did call him because he had his number on the webpage, and I eventually bought the Land Trust Made Simple home study course. The course was great, and I was actually able to make my own land trust 100% by myself. No attorneys involved, no realtors involved, and that's me with very little real estate experience. If I can do it, anyone can do it, and I want to reassure you that it is well worth the money.
That was a pretty good testimonial from a young man, just sat down and did it. But I think it confirms the fact that it's not hard to do, and you can do it on your own. So what does my home study course cost? Well, not much. You get all of this and a 6-month membership in the Land Trust University for $597. And you can write it off in your taxes. Am I right? As educational material. $597, and you'll write trusts the rest of your life at no cost. I do often get asked, in fact, I have quite a few lawyers that buy my materials and they turn it into a profit center for themselves. Charging $1,000 per trust thereafter, which is okay. That's fine with me. And I had a lawyer who bought my basic course, and he called me up and he said, "This is great stuff, Randy. Do you have any more?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I've got an advanced course." He said, "Give it to me." And so I do have an advanced course. It's nothing you have to have. You have to have the basic course to learn how to do this, but the advanced course is more asset protection techniques, teaches you how to complete a personal property trust. So if you want to put your car, your boat, your motorcycle in trust, you would use the advanced course material. And it is $597 also. But if you buy these courses together, and I've got some packaged together out at the table, I discount them by $297. So for $897, you can have both the basic and advanced courses. And then I have one last thing to offer you. It's called the Elite Package. It's all 4 of my courses, both my Land Trust Basic and Advanced, and then my option course, teach you how to buy and sell options on real estate, and my Privacy and Asset Protection course. If you were to buy all this normally on my website, it's $1,550. If you buy it today, it's only $997. And it's all 4 of those courses, the videos, the audios, the form, and everything is on this little key. It's just amazing. I used to do I had the CDs of all my material. And then all of a sudden they started making computers without CD players, right? So all these CDs are worthless. So we converted over to USB drives. It's just a key, it sticks in the side of your computer. All the materials on this key for that Elite Package. And you get the key for the basic and advanced, as I mentioned earlier. So the bottom line is you work hard for your assets. Makes sense for you to spend a little bit of time and a little bit of money learning how to protect your assets, doesn't it? See, most people will put this off. Oh, I don't need it. It'll never happen to me. I'll do it later. Can you buy insurance on your house after it's caught on fire? Can you go out and buy insurance for your car after you've been in a car accident? Everybody in here has car insurance. Everybody in here has homeowners insurance. Why? The possible risk you're trying to insure against, right? This is the same thing, except much more important, because the value of your investments is going to be much greater than the value of your car or your personal residence. So if you transfer that logic to what you've already done to this, it makes a lot of sense for you to get going on this and to start learning how to do this. I do have a money-back guarantee. If you get the materials today, for 1 week, you can test drive it and look it over. If it's not what I promised, just send it back. I'll give you 100% of your money back, and we'll still be friends. So you have two options here. You can buy my course and learn how to protect your assets, or you can ignore my advice at your own peril and hope that nothing happens to you. But I can assure you, if you're going to be in this business for a lifetime, like I have, weird things happen. I didn't even tell you half the stories I've got of ways that these trusts have protected my students. For those of you that are watching online, here are some links for you. If you want to get the basic course, you want to get the advanced course, go to those links. You will only see a 3-month guarantee or 3-month Land Trust University membership when you make your purchase online, because that's what you get online. But I will manually upgrade you to 6 months since you're attending this live event today. And everybody will get 6 months. So there's the link for the basic and the link for the advanced courses, basic and advanced together. If you want your course autographed afterwards, I'll be glad to do that. You never know, it might increase in value when I go to that great trust in the sky, you know. But a lot of people want me to do that, so I'll be glad to autograph it and date it and sign it for you. I do have one last thing to offer you. This is my privacy and asset protection book. 30 years have gone into this research. This is my 3.0 version. Privacy and asset protection book. Doesn't talk about trust. It just talks about other ways to protect your assets. This is, I think, normally 89 bucks on my website. Anybody that buys my course today, I'll give this to you for free. It'll be an extra bonus on top of everything else I've talked about. You'll be amazed at what is in this book. A lot of my life is in this book. But, and for you folks watching, same thing goes for you. If you buy online today, I will ship you a copy of this book. Okay, well, let's see where we're at. So we didn't give you the forms. They're out at the table. Sasha, my assistant's out at the table. You may have met her earlier. If you go out there, she'll have you fill out a form. You can purchase a home study course, take it home today, and start studying it, and we'll get you into the Land Trust University. That is everything that you would get when you fill out the form. You get all that. Any questions so far? You guys have been real quiet with the questions. I usually get thousands of them where I have to shut it off, but any questions?
Yeah, I got a question. So how does this affect step-up and basis for when somebody dies?
Doesn't affect it at all. Great question. And I'm going to give you a real example. My wife and I worked as a partnership all our lives, but she kept the books, so she sat in an office with the door closed and was happy in front of a computer. The odds of her getting sued were very slim. Now, I'm a mover and a shaker out here in the real world, and the odds of me getting sued were much higher, right? So the way we structured our assets, she owned 95% of everything. So when she died, I got to step up in basis on 95% of what we had acquired, which was real convenient because, we had a whole lot of stuff that had been depreciated to zero. So that was her last gift to me, was a step up in basis on all of it. So you still get it. That's my point. It doesn't affect it. Same thing with exchanges, 1031 exchanges. You can do that with a trust. You can exchange from trustee to trustee or beneficiary to beneficiary, but the IRS says that's okay too. Good question. Any other questions? I will go out to the table and meet anybody that has any more questions, wants to talk about it. I love this subject. It's what I do. It's my way of giving back after 50 years in the business, and teach people how to protect these assets that you're working so hard for. So if you have any more questions, I'll go out to the table afterwards. And other than that, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. Okay.
Thank you, Randy.